All right, friends, welcome back to another powerful episode of Mind Over Masculinity, the podcast where we stop telling men to man up and start getting the real about what is actually going on in their heads and hearts. So, I'm your host Avik, and today we are pulling back the curtain on something that most guys feel every single day but rarely name: the unspoken expectations that show up the moment you get a new title, a promotion, a leadership role, or or even you can say just the level of a provider, husband, dad, or the strong one. So to help us decode this silent pressure, we have an incredible guest. So please welcome Nora Bouchard. So welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about talking to your audience. I work with a lot of men. So, and it's kind of funny because as an executive coach, a lot of people think that men would not take advantage of coaching, but honestly, the vast majority of my clients are men. So,
True. So, um, I'm definitely love to delve deep into the discussion today, dear listeners. But before we do that, I quickly like to introduce you with Nora. So, Nora is an executive and leadership coach with 3 decades in this game. So, she has coached emerging leaders and C-suite power players across the tech, finance, healthcare, and many more. So, she is also the author of Hidden Metrics, a quotes secret to success that really matters. A book that takes you behind the official goals and into the real scorecard people judge you by. So here is what I love. Nora is not speaking from an ivory tower. She tells the story of when she was that high performer with the toxic standards,
that's right.
crushing the vessels, wrecking relationships. Then her boss asked one question: "What are you afraid of, Nora?" That question flipped everything, led to her first set of hidden metrics, and eventually to the work she does today. So, today we are not just talking about the leadership theory, but we are talking about men, the pressure, fear, and the secret metrics that either burn you, burn you out, or build you up. So, I'll not take much of a time. Let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Hey, thank you. I'm excited.
Amazing. So, Nora, what men actually being graded on? Um, when you look at men in the leadership today, what are the hidden metrics you see them being judged on that nobody actually writes in the job description?
Oh, right. Well, there are quite a few.
Yeah.
But I think generally, let's start with the general expectations, which I think you've probably covered quite well in your previous podcast. But this idea that you have to show no fear, that you have to be fearless, that you have to avoid any kind of emotion that might smack of the feminine. So not about being supported or listening deeply or emotionally available or empathetic. That those things traditionally are not valued by kind of this old school masculine mentality. And really I've got I studied a little bit about different archetypes over the years. And when we think about the masculine archetype, that's not who the masculine archetype is. The masculine archetype is someone who is strong and grounded and organized and anticipates the future. These are like the positive things, but very few people are talking to you about those things. So when somebody is promoted, and regardless of the level of the promotion, whether it's your first or your fifth, there are all sorts of expectations in addition to those basic ones that follow you because you're a man. And as such, people have these shorthand rules that they expect you to stick with. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So one of the first ones that I think a lot of people, especially men, deal with is this idea is once you're promoted, you don't realize that you have a new team, that you're actually moving up into a new team. You're being adopted or invited into a team that already exists. And it's your new peer group. Your team no longer is the people that you used to do the work with. Those people are now, I call them your squad to differentiate. It just makes it a little bit easier. Your squad are the people now that you need to be leading, not just hanging out with and being friends with and even though you can still do that, you have to understand that with that promotion, there's a hidden expectation that you are now part of a new team. And so that means your loyalty has to be to that new team. Still want to support your squad, but let's say if your squad does something that doesn't sit right with some of your peers, then it's not going to be in your best interest to immediately, like a knee jerk reaction, respond and defend your squad. You have to listen carefully to your peers. You have to hear what their complaint is, and you have to work with them and your squad to resolve it. So I think that's one of the first hidden expectations. And, you know, men are discouraged from really valuing their friendships.
Yeah.
Um, and so this seems a little it seems a little harsh sometimes because you have to change the friendships that you have now.
Exactly. If we strip away the official performance goals, right? Like, what do you think are some of the real silent rules that men feel? Like things like what to say, like never show fear, always have the answers, always be on top of it, never need help. So, what do you say?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that one about never needing help, the first book I wrote was actually called Mayday, Asking for Help in Times of Need. And it was so funny. I would get, when the book was published, I would get a lot of inquiries about the differences between men and women asking for help. And both men and women have difficulty doing that. Men, especially in the work environment. Women, not so much in the work environment. They may have their ego may be attached to other aspects or domains of their lives, but men especially have a very difficult time asking for help in the workplace. And and it didn't surprise me at all. But I think that one, especially when you've been promoted, that you feel like you have to take on this persona that's like you said, you have all the answers. You know exactly what to expect. You don't need to ask for help. You've made it to this position. And none of that is true. None of that is true. And in fact, asking for help after a promotion is one of the first things you should be doing. You should be finding a mentor, a sponsor, someone that a peer that you can go to and to pick their brains and get the information that you need and the perspective that you need. And you can frame it in a way that's not like, oh, gee, I need help. I'm, falling apart here. You can frame it in a way like, I want to do the best I can, and I know I don't have all the pieces of information I need. Are you willing to help me with that? And I'd be really surprised if anybody said no. So certainly that first step really is about what help do you need and who are you going to get that help from?
Very true. Yeah.
I think one of the other things that pops up is this focus away from doing the work to building relationships.
Mm.
So you've probably been promoted because you got things done or your team got things done. But the higher up in an organization you go, the less they care about that and the more they care about the relationships you make.
Mm.
And in fact, people in the senior levels, they're not out there doing the work. They're creating relationships with each other so that they can build trust and make decisions that work for the organization. So for them, it's not, they don't end up, like I don't know about you, but I love task lists, to-do lists. I love doing that. But
Exactly.
right, but in up in the higher echelons of organizations, you won't see them with a task list. You'll see them with a list of meetings for the day because they're building relationships in those meetings. That's what they're doing. So that's one of the hidden expectations that nobody talks to you about is this idea that the higher up you go in the organization, it's less about doing the work and more about building relationships.
Exactly. And this hits hard because so many guys listening, I will think that I thought that was just real reality and not a here rule. And I love that you are naming it. I mean, once we see the invisible scorecard and uh, we can finally choose whether we still want to play that game. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I do remember years ago, I was coaching a new leader. He had just been promoted to his first management role, and he was so excited about it. But he told me how he was so surprised. Nobody had told him how much time he was gonna spend dealing with emotions. And he was like, "I don't like this part." And I was laughing at him like, "Yeah, it's hard. That's the hard part of being a leader is dealing with the emotions." Because think about it, if you're part of a team now and you have a boss, you're probably going to that boss talking about your hopes and fears and the things that you want to achieve and everything that you're looking forward to in the future. And if there are problems maybe at home, you might be sharing some of those. If you don't have experience, especially as a new manager, in dealing with those kinds of situations, it can be a bit overwhelming. So understanding that you're moving into um, this fear that's surrounded by emotions is really another hidden expectation.
Hmm, true. So suppose like when a man realizes that, oh wow, this is not just my personality, this is fear running the show. So then what is one accessible first step uh,
Mm.
take that does not feel kind of weak but still moves him forward or towards healthier behavior? What do you think?
Yeah. I think that's a really important question because we are all afraid at work almost every day. We get we get hit with a little bit of fear if something happens, especially these days. So, one of the things that my clients find is really helpful is first of all noticing it, which if you do notice it, kudos to you because that means that you really are developing self-awareness. And to notice that you're afraid and you're performing or acting from that fear, not a good thing. So noticing it first, obviously, everybody says that you've got to be aware of it. And then the next thing I usually suggest is to move your body. If you're sitting down, I want you to stand up. And if you're standing up, I want you to go for a walk. I want you to move your body so your body breaks from this posture that is fear based because fear is going to tighten you up. It's going to slow you down. It's going to make you crunch your shoulders. It's going to make your breathing very shallow. So we want to break you out of that mood of fear. And the best way to do that is to use your body to do it. So there was one group I worked with years ago, and to shift them out of, let's say, a complaining mood where they're just coming in and they just want to complain to me about their coworkers. What I used to do is I used to tell them to drop and give me 10 push-ups.
Yeah.
And they would laugh, but by the end of the 10 push-ups, their mood was completely different. So you can do the same if you're feeling that sense of fear. Use your body to break it and then decide how you want to deal with it.
Exactly. Hmm.
Have you ever done anything like that?
Yes, I did. And push-ups, pull-ups.
Yes.
What?
Yes. And you can't, you just can't. Well, okay. So do you have children?
I know.
No. Okay. Well, anybody who's listening who has children. So one of the things that a lot of people, at least here in the US, do is they talk about timeouts for their kids if their kids are acting up. And so they put them on a stair step or they put them in a chair and they are basically in this timeout showing them how to break the hold that this emotion has on them. If they're throwing a tantrum or if they're scared or upset, to break the fear, you have to do something else. You have to use your body differently. So it's kind of like a timeout for a grown up. But yeah, I if you're feeling the fear, do something that's going to break that.
Correct. Correct. And also, I'd love to ask you about your first book was Mayday.
Mayday, asking for help in times of need. Yes. So, yes.
So why is asking for help still uh, such a threat to the masculine identity, especially
Yeah.
leaders? What do you say?
Yeah. It really is. Like, first of all, we're acculturated that way. And, from our childhood on, we're taught to have the answer, not to have another question. So even in school, in when we're really young in school, we're applauded for having the right answer, but we're not encouraged to have more questions. So, it in to even form the question, "Will you help me?" That in itself is a question that we discourage children from learning to ask. So, I think it's getting a little bit better, but it's still very difficult. I think we also know at some level that um, we're part of a society, we're part of a whole, we're part of a community or a tribe, and we don't want to risk being seen as weak.
Ah,
We don't want to be seen as someone who should be how do I who should be banished or set aside because we're always asking for help. We don't want to look like we're incompetent, and we're terrified. Men especially, I think, are afraid of being banished or set aside or labeled as being different from the whole. And so we don't ask for the help we need. We don't. And and in fact, as we grow up, the people who are rewarded are the ones who, are these uh, entrepreneurs who do it all on their own, which is not true. They never do it on their own. It's the big name celebrity, it's one person being singled out, or it's a sports player who, who has taken the team to the World Cup. That's not what it is. And we miss the fact that it is always a team effort.
hmm. I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
But everyone needs to ask for help. And the thing is, you can create an environment at work where help is accepted where it's encouraged, where asking for it is celebrated. You do not need to just carry the burden yourself, which is what men often do.
Right. So, for the man who thinks that if I ease up on myself, I'll lose my edge. So, how do you help uh, that man see that compassion, like values and self awareness, can actually sharpen his performance and not dull it?
It's we can only see what we can see. And that's why we need other people around us to help us see what we're missing. So that's why being a coach for me is such a great thing because I feel like this is my legacy, something that I can leave with others because I help my clients see what they're missing. And I do that through questions. But you don't need a coach. It could be a spouse, it could be a sibling, it could be a parent, it could be a teacher or a boss. So you mentioned when you introduced me about my story about being a toxic leader when I was young. And the question my boss asked me after I'd kind of gotten pulled into his office for being so mean to people was, "What are you afraid of?" And I had not even thought about fear. I needed someone to point out to me that I was acting from a place of fear. And that's what he did. And I'm so grateful to him to this day. But we need people in our lives who are going to help us see what we're missing. That's the only way we keep our edge. We can't keep our edge just keep on doing the things we've always done.
True. Exactly.
Plus, there is a point in time. There's a very, very old model called the 7 stages of man.
Oh,
And and one of the stages that is really celebrated is this one of being the warrior, the one who's out on the battlefield, the one who's doing the work every day and winning the business or bringing in the money or literally winning a battle. But inevitably, that person is going to be injured the longer they're on that playing field. And so that's okay. It's
yeah.
it's nature. It's what's gonna happen. You will eventually become wounded, and then you move into the wounded male stage, and you can decide you're gonna stay there and lick your wounds for the rest of your life, or you can move into the next stage, which is really about being a general or a leader, someone who is not on the battlefield anymore, but who has wisdom to share and understands the cost of what it means to be on that battlefield. And I think that I don't think that model is taught enough because I think it gives people, especially men, permission to get off the battlefield, to say,
Mm.
"I've fought my fights. I don't need to be doing the work every day. I can let someone younger, newer, with new ideas take that over, and I can move forward and use the wisdom that I've accrued."
Exactly.
I just feel
Mm.
um, for the limitations that society has put on them and, for the lack of support they have received over the years. I mean, they do drive me crazy too, but also I really love working with them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really amazing, I'd say. And it's a great conversation today, I'd say. And uh, before we wrap, like, if someone wants to connect with you, how they can connect?
Well, they can write to me, directly at Nora, Nora, at MNORABouchard.com, MNoraBouchard.com. So I have a first name. I don't use it. but I have a first name, so it's mnorabouchard.com. And if they write to me directly, I'm happy to respond. No, I'm not going to hard sell anyone. I'm happy to have a conversation. If you're interested in the book, Hidden Metrics, I would go to www.hidden-metrics.com. And if you want to learn more about Mayday, asking for help in times of need, I wrote that under my maiden name, which was Claver. So you can find it on Amazon, but it's Mayday apostrophe, or not apostrophe, exclamation mark, Mayday exclamation mark, asking for help in times of need. And you can find it there.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, if you're listening to this and feeling a little called out, good. That means something in you is awake. So, you do not have to mix your whole life tonight. Just start by choosing one metric that you will live by tomorrow. I'll share every details and the links and all everything to the show notes for easy reference. And um, share this episode with a man who needs permission to redefine success on his own terms. And also remember, on Mind Over Masculinity, we are not just talking about men's mental health. We are upgrading the rules of the game. So till then, be happy and be mindful. Thank you so much.